I've mentioned the same thing over and over in a lot of videos. When it comes to WWDC, the big thing we're expecting to be the massive refresh on all of our Apple devices, which yes, primarily is software. Siri is behind the times. I think the reason we expect so much from Siri is because we all have access to her. It's not like other digital assistants out there. We don't joke about how Cortana isn't really with it because she's not really that easy to access. You got Windows 10 and that, okay. So you have a PC or you don't. That's your only options for accessing Cortana. I don't know anyone who downloads the Cortana app on their phone or Android and uses it. No, that is not what happens. But Siri is on our TV, iPad, phone, watch, Mac. You can even access her through your AirPods. So it just makes sense that if we're going to have a digital assistant that is so readily accessible, it definitely needs to be one of the best digital assistants out there. And right now it is behind Alexa, Amazon Echo's digital assistant, and the Google Assistant, which is making its way into as many Android phones as possible, and now even iOS devices. I think the primary reason we give a lot of intelligence credit to the Google Assistant is because of how fast it is. Google has really nailed down how to get artificial intelligence responding to you very quickly. I remember when the Google Assistant came out, I think a year ago, right, because it was on the Google Pixel. It was like one of the exclusive features about that phone was the fact that it shipped with the Google Assistant. And one of the things they were very proud of was that it could understand context. It could actually have an ongoing conversation. I do think that's important, and if we are going to have digital assistants in our future, that's one thing I think we need to nail down. So when you ask, are there any good movies playing, it would tell you, obviously. Siri would do that as well, but you should be able to respond and say, what about ones with Johnny Depp? And it can understand that context you used from the last interaction and can carry on that conversation. I hope they make that change to Siri. The next thing I want Apple to literally just copy from Google is the ability to actually type Siri without using your voice at all. Now, right now, you can say things to Siri and then edit what you said, which is handy. I like that, and they should keep that feature, but it would be even greater if you had Siri as a digital assistant that you could just text. You don't need to talk to her. You don't need to hold the home button. You don't need to hear the awkward doo-doo in the middle of the room. You can literally just have silent mode with Siri. I think that would be great, and it might be easier to access if we actually had the option of putting like a Siri app on our home screens, kind of like iCloud Drive right now. See, iCloud Drive is not on your home screen by default, but you could go into the settings and turn it on, and then it'll show up. I would expect the same with Siri, because we don't need more apps on our home screen. But again, for those of us who want to interact with Siri like that, I think that would be an easy way to do it. Just have an app. The next thing Apple could work on with Siri is understanding its hands-free term a little better, which we all know is very good. Hope I'm not setting off too many of your devices by talking about this. But Google has also been really good at understanding when someone is trying to talk to it from across the room. Amazon has been really good at this too. I've had Android phones that could be on opposite ends of my very long room, and I could fairly quietly just kind of normally speak the words, okay, Google, and then it would go off from all the way across the room. It's impressive. I do believe Apple is really beefing up these features because they're putting these little Siri Easter eggs in Siri right now. If you ask her about WWDC, she has some answers, like trying to pronounce names, and Apple is obviously teasing us that Siri is getting a massive overhaul so that she is actual AI and not just something we occasionally talk to. So if they could nail down that term with every syllable, and of course have voice recognition so that maybe Siri will only respond to your voice and no one else's, even better, I think we could have a real competitor here. Now, part of the problem is the actual hardware we have, because of course to hear these things correctly, you need to have really good microphones, and it appears on the new iPad Pro that is leaked actually, thought about talking about that in a second, it appears to have many microphones, at least 3 on the top, which is just a little bit of a hardware leak that is proof Apple is going to be focusing on their hardware, listening to you better. Those microphones are really there for Siri. I don't think they care that much about making sure your video audio quality is that much better. It's an iPad. You don't record many videos with it. Those microphones are there for Siri. And of course, there's the rumored Siri speaker, which I'm very curious about given we have no leaked renders of it, other than the fact that we know it looks kind of like a Mac Pro in that there's lots of microphones and it'll sound pretty good. It's got a wide array of speakers and even a slight touch panel on the top or somewhere that is running some form of tweaked iOS. So the Siri speaker is a great wild card because it's a brand new lineup of Apple product we've never seen before, and I think that the fact that they're releasing a smart speaker means Apple is revamping Siri heavily. Best case scenario, she'll be able to outperform the Google Assistant, and honestly, she doesn't even have to do that. She just has to come close, both with speed and in knowledge and in continuity. If Siri is on par with the Google Assistant, Siri already wins, because Siri has the support of the Apple Sheep. Google has Fandroids, but they're not quite as loyal. While Apple Sheep will not care if the Siri speaker is $500, they will pay for it. And of course, Siri is on far more devices than the Google Assistant is. The only reason we crown the Google Assistant as king is because it's really good at its job. There's no denying that right now. And of course, with Alexa on the Amazon products, you really only get her on those Echo products. You really only get her on those Echo devices. You don't get her on phones very often. You can use it on your iPhone and Android, but it's in the Amazon app. It doesn't provide much visuals. It's not the way to go. I don't think anyone does it that way. You only really use Alexa if you have an Echo product, which Amazon is dominating that industry right now that they actually invented. Echo lineup is 70% of the smart speaker market, which makes sense. The Google Home, I don't think really stands up to the Echo lineup, but I talked about the smartwatch industry before Apple entered it and mentioned that it's not really a phase and it's not really an industry until Apple enters it. Before that, it's usually just a couple companies messing around, Google and Amazon. But when Apple shows up, now it's a real fight because Apple has that huge fan base that's either going to be interested in it or interested in the competition. So I'm very curious on what you think Siri needs to upgrade. And I do kind of think Siri is overhated sometimes. I think Siri's really good at doing things within the phone, texting people, playing music, setting reminders, calendar events, stuff like that. She's pretty good at. But of course, we only compare to the Google Assistant with street knowledge, which is Google's advantage. They are the internet. And response times, which Android likes to make things as snappy as possible. Wouldn't it be great if Siri had an offline mode so that if you didn't have internet, you could still use her for certain things? I'd love to see something like that. So let me know all your ideas in the comments below. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you in the next one.